So there was a suicide bombing in Damascus in Syria in a Christian church, of course. I say of course because it's completely predictable because the violence really only goes one way. And all these leftists in the United States want to excuse the Islamists slash Islam in general for the actions undertaken by such a few number of people that are propagandized and lied to about a potential heaven. Now, the reason that it resonates for me is because I was in Syria. I was near this church at one point that was attacked in Damascus, and I know somebody, a Christian, who lives in Damascus, who helped me get over from Damascus into Jordan via the bus and assisted me with everything that I needed with translations. And I contacted him and asked him. Now, the interesting fact is that when Syria had regime change, when the Bashar Assad regime was overthrown, I asked him, and I honestly would have predicted that he would have told me that they were not in favor of Assad being overthrown. The reason being is because Assad protected religious minorities, that this type of event did not happen under Assad, the suicide bombing I'm referencing, of course. And at the time, this was several months ago, he told me that the Syrian people, not in unison, but a large majority, including religious minorities, were cheering this because they felt that the Assad regime had bled them dry, that they were very draconian with them, that they had stolen a large portion of what would be the wealth of the civilians, that corruption had undermined the regime, and that right now, religious minorities were being protected by the new Islamist, the former Al-Qaeda member who was ensconced into power. The question is, did it last? Today, you see the attack on a Christian church in Syria, a Greek Orthodox church. And I messaged him because I noted on Facebook that he said that he had marked himself safe. And he told me now that people are recognizing that the Assad regime, at least they had security under them. At least they know that they knew that they weren't going to be attacked for who they are. Today, before, if you had spoken out against the regime, for example, they would have arrested you. They would have tortured you. Today, they just kill you in your front yard. This is the new Islamic rule when you have a former Al-Qaeda member trying to accumulate power in such a manner. These are the actions that they undertake. So once again, you guys think in the West that Islam is such a cool thing, that they're the underdogs? No, they are essentially feeding you a diet of them being victims of the West. And the moment that you see them within this frame, leftists, you believe that you must fight and reach for them, when in fact, wherever these Islamists take power, there is nothing but death and destruction. I'm talking about the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm talking about the enslavement of women. I'm talking about the forced conversion of religious minorities under penalty of death if it gets far enough. If you just take a look at what happens in Afghanistan and the Taliban. And so here we have the Iranian theocracy that has subjugated its population to a horrific extent, to the point where if you're gay, they will hang you off of cranes. If you're a woman and you fail to wear a hijab, they will brutally attack you. In fact, there was a recent uprising over a girl who was not wearing her hijab properly, and the religious police came and assaulted her and killed her. And the number of young people that have attempted to have regime change in Iran is vast. But when you take a look what actually happens when these Islamists take over, and yes, the Shia theocracy of Iran are Islamists that want to subjugate the world to Islam. And it's the same thing with Al-Qaeda. They believe that Islam is the religion that must rule, and that anything other than bending the knee is grounds for war. This is what they are exporting to the West, and you see it happening in England. You see it happening in America today. And here you have this poor guy who tells me that there are still missiles flying overhead And that might be from Iran and Israel, and that they don't really care what's going on with them. What they really want is peace. They've had 15 years of a generation of youth that have been lost to war, to carnage, that people have bad health because of the negative effects of all the stress, of the death, of not being able to get proper medical care. But how many doctors out there are going to go out and try to serve the underprivileged in Syria when they're making no money and their life is at risk? Not very many. That's the reality. So here you have this regime change, this horrific man that has taken control of Syria, this former Al-Qaeda ISIS agent who used to have a $10 million bounty on his head. And now you're seeing churches with suicide bombings. That didn't happen under Assad. The number one need, that base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is security. Once you violate that, a human being does not function. And this is what these people are faced with. So whatever happens in Iran, I'm not rooting for the theocracy, but I do want rule of law, and I want safety for the people of Iran. People do not deserve this. We live in an age that is the most peaceful on the planet, believe it or not. War used to be continuous and nonstop, and because of nuclear weapons, ironically enough, we have mutually assured destruction, which limits the incursions into other people's countries. That's part of the reason that the United States is so safe, along with the fact that we have oceans on either side of us. These are the sad events that are taking place within Syria, in the Middle East. And when you become aware of what happens when you overthrow a regime, when you have a military that is destroying the existing homeostasis, however negative it might be for the people, they always veer back to wanting the old dictator, because at least under him, they had their first need of security met and provided for by the state to some degree, whereas today they have nothing but chaos. And I fear the same thing will happen in Iran, despite the fact that nobody should be a fan of the theocracy that exists there. And all of you who are inviting Islamists to come over to the West to teach us this noble religion of Islam, you better be learning Sufism, because the extremist Wahhabi version of the Sunni religion, or the extreme Shiite religion, is Shiite, if you caught that. So, God bless the people of Syria. This suicide bomb attack probably won't be the last, and believe me, that is going to be coming to the West on a more frequent basis if they have their druthers. Do you not think that the Biden administration, basically when they opened the border, allowed massive number of sleeper cell terrorists to pour in? Yeah, that happened too. Peace to the world, peace to everybody out there, and may the Iranian people have a government that serves them and provides liberty as well as security. And God bless my friend in Syria. Peace.